Artillery strike online. Artillery strike activated.
Greetings, programs. This is Dark Horse 13 Golf, and I'm here to cover a subject for newer players that isn't really that I've noticed doesn't really get talked about a lot, and that would be strikes. Newer players are usually more concerned on builds and torso twisting and staying alive, especially if they get sucked up to the higher tiers. So I noticed that strikes are not talked about a lot. Matter of fact, consumables in general aren't talked about a lot, but this one's going to focus on strikes. So if you're an older hand, I'm telling you now, this is geared towards newer players. So if you want to skip ahead to the gameplay, go ahead. If you want to just check out, make sure I know what I'm talking about, you're welcome. If you want to skip it entirely, totally don't blame me. Anyway, here we go. Now, the basics of a strike is just knowing when to employ it and knowing how it works. Now, airstrikes and artillery strikes work differently. Airstrikes go in a linear pattern. It does one long line of freaking destruction down there, rather narrow and focused, whereas opposed to an artillery strike, which does a cone, a circular pattern from a central point. What does this mean? This means that airstrikes can be more potent but harder to do because you got to aim it almost, because the lane is so narrow. But however, they do tend to be a bit more potent. Now, artillery strikes are more utilitarian. They work in a wider area and is excellent on wider groups. Airstrikes, they're excellent for if they're happen to be in a line, or if you're trying to get at somebody that's behind cover, because airstrikes do very well hitting someone behind cover, as I will show you in the testing grounds in just a moment. Here, let me go ahead and just get it right out of the horse's mouth exactly what these are. Artillery strike. Oh, come on, you sucker. There we go, my bad. There it is. Now, calls in a barrage of long-range artillery. 10 shells drop on target air after a 4-second flight time delay. Roger that. Okay. Each shell does up to 165 points of damage to the mech. Now, this is what I'm getting at. This is what's important. How that works is each shell can cause a maximum of 15 points of damage to each body part. That means head, front, left, right, and center torsos, rear, right, left, and center torsos, legs, and arms. So what makes these things so devastating is when you have 2 or 3 shells landing in the same area, all of a sudden it's 45 points to a part. That's where you start seeing the real damage and devastation, especially nowadays where a lot of pilots, including myself, really kind of thin up the rear armor. That's where a lot of damage can happen. Matter of fact, kills can happen that way. So that's the basic math of it. Now, what happens now is, we'll go back to my buddy here. There we go. Is now they have it where you can actually make them stronger. Airstrikes back in the day used to be more of a nuisance or a suppression weapon as opposed to something that can really cause a lot of damage. Good Lord. Anyway, now what happens is I got my buddy, the shootist here. This is my Ice Ferret P that you see in the variant I'm rather fond of. And if you go down, you see I go down the tree. It says number of shells, plus 25% for advanced salvo. Another plus 25 is 50%. So at that point, when you max that out, you got 15 shells inbound. Expanded reserves lets you carry 2 strikes as opposed to being limited to 1. And hand spotting, it increases the accuracy and the air and artillery. It makes the airstrike even more focused, which is both good and bad. Makes it more potent when it hits, but makes it that much harder to actually get a hit with that. And it actually tightens the cone of the artillery strike, which means you have more rounds hitting in a tighter area, which is great, especially if you get a clustered group of assault mechs or whatnot. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the shooters here, my buddy, and we're going to go ahead and go out, and I'm going to show you what enhanced ones can do. Then I'm going to grab one of my mechs that does not have these nodes unlocked, and I'll show you just how comparatively weak and inaccurate they are. I'm sure we're going to use the old Mark 1 eyeball, because that's the best way to do it. You'll actually see the difference. So without any more delay, let's go ahead and hit that up. And here we are. We have our tackling dummy, or test target here. It's Mr. Awesome. He's about to have a bad day. And we're going to go ahead, and as soon as the cooldown goes down, and I'm going to touch on some points here. One of them is something a lot of people don't know. If someone on your team uses an artillery strike, your artillery strike goes to cooldown, meaning you have to wait to use yours. That keeps
Artillery strike
PGI started
online.
that to keep it from being spammed and
online.
ridiculous, because they're already a hell of a lot more powerful than they used to be. So let's say I was using my artillery strike right now. One of my teammates would go on a cooldown before he can use his, which can be kind of irritating. I have had literally happen where great minds think alike, I guess you can say, and I see a target and I set it up and then pop over and I'm ready to go and expose myself and I press the button, my 9 key in my case, and nothing. Because someone had used it in a split second. It took me to go ahead, jump up and do it. So it's really important to keep track of that. Now we're going to start with the artillery strike. And Mr. Awesome
Artillery
is about to
strike
get nailed
activated.
pretty good. Now this is fully enhanced. Look at that tight cone. Oh yeah, not bad.
Airstrike online.
Not bad at all. As you can see, dropping down to 71%. That is significant. That is significant damage. And you see, it generally kept in between that rock and that rock, so it was pretty tight area. Now I'm going to go ahead and set the airstrike down here, and I'm doing this to show you how we can literally climb up stuff to hit stuff behind cover or above or whatever. So it looks like the airstrike's ready. Now let's do this.
Airstrike activated.
Now watch. Oh no! Right in the face. See, it literally just climbed right up like that. And if he had been behind cover, like see this rock right here, it would have climbed up and over and around and still got it. So, as you can see, with 2 strikes, I have dropped an Awesome down to 51%. Now, if there was a group of them like that, they could all take that kind of lick. So, I mean, you can really get some damage in there like that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and grab someone else out of the mech bay and show you unenhanced so you can see just how different it is. Okay, here we are. I went ahead and grabbed one of my Centurions out of there. And has nothing in the auxiliary tree.
Artillery strike
And there we go.
online.
Now, we'll go ahead and put the artillery strike on poor Mr. Awesome. And I'll show you the difference. Now, this one's going to be unenhanced, so you're going to notice it be just even look a lot less potent than the one on the Ice Ferret. So here we go.
Artillery strike activated.
Look at that. Huh, still did pretty decent. But look, you had over here, way back there, all that. So you notice the last one stayed pretty much in between the confines of here. This one was, I saw one strike around there, someone strike back there. So you had less shells over a wider range of area, meaning a less effective strike usually. That one was actually fairly decent because a couple did get in close. Alright, let me go ahead and slap an airstrike on my buddy here, and then see that it show that off. Alright, here we are. Got slapped, we had slapped a airstrike on him. Now the airstrike, the difference, it's not going to be
Airstrike
quite as
online.
obvious. But if you notice, if you look, you'll see that the track's a little wider, less concentrated, and there will be less bombs. Anyway, let's go ahead and do that real quick. Pretty much about the same spot I put the last one for continuity. Oh,
Airstrike activated.
let's see. Now it should still hit him pretty good. Not as good as the last one, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, you did see the strike was shorter in duration and a little wider. Like I said, it's harder to see on the airstrike, but trust me, that is that is the difference. Now, before we get to the gameplay and I'll show you the stuff in action, a couple points I want to make. These are Seville strikes. You can buy strikes for MCs that are a little more capable, but especially in public, you're really not going to see those. So I went ahead and went with what you would see and most likely use yourself. Second is okay, artillery. When you spawn, like I spawned facing, so my artillery battery is somewhere over there. That is important to know because of terrain purposes. If you're knowing where you're striking from, and terrain could have an effect on the strike, particularly if they're in cover. Whereas, let's say the front line, real quick, you know, is like normal north-south. I'm in cover. In artillery's case, a lot of that stuff might not get through something like this, kind of like in the case of LRMs. Now, conversely, let's say we had shifted and it's more of an east-west fight for whatever reason, and I'm over here, I'm going to eat every last bit of it, even if I'm in cover back here. If you put that strike on me, it's gonna do it. Now, strikes are actually a little more flexible. The airstrike will come in behind wherever you're facing. Fighter bombers will shift their flight pattern to come in from behind you. Not a big deal, and certainly not something you might always have in mind when you're out there, you know, actually in a real match. But hey, it's just something maybe might you know, come in handy to know. Now, that being said, I've covered pretty much the basics. There's probably more advanced techniques and whatnot. Like I said, this is just to get some newer guys some familiarity with these things, and so that way they feel more comfortable employing them. So we're gonna go ahead and hit up some gameplay, and I'll show you the stuff in action.
Reactor online.
Alright.
Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Command to warriors.
Now,
Capture resources and wipe the surface clean of any enemies.
now, normally, I run 2 artillery strikes on this guy because I usually try to get behind. But, hey, I want to, you know, it's an education thing, so I'm trying to show off both. So, I just have to, I probably should go for the theta mode.
We've captured Gamma. Resource point Sigma is now controlled by the enemy.
Scenario. Oh, I thought I asked this place really fast.
We have Theta.
Oh man, I love capture accelerator. Anyway, so
Artillery strike
hopefully I
online.
can.
Airstrike online.
Kappa has fallen.
Oh boy. Hopefully I can show off what I want to show you.
Resource point Epsilon is ours.
Nobody cares. Somebody's gonna come from there.
acquired.
Target spotted.
Ow. What's he got there? And the crab ditches or something. I don't know. Let's see. This is do it. Yep. I'm out of here. Try something else. I might not be able to throw any strikes at all this one.
New target acquired.
Oh my god. Well, there goes my reward.
A good start.
New target
Keep holding the
acquired.
resource points, warriors. The enemy has resource point beta.
Ask Miles for doing shit.
Left arm destroyed. ER large laser destroyed.
They are a quarter of the way there. Do not let them push ahead.
Sorry.
Gamma is theirs.
Target spotted. Need assistance.
Activated. Warning, incoming missile. Left torso, critical damage. Airstrike online. Heat sink destroyed. Airstrike activated.
Run down that hill, maybe. Yes.
Target destroyed.
Our foes are halfway to victory.
Center torso, critical damage. Right torso, critical damage. Right arm, critical damage. Target acquired. Target acquired.
Oh, fuck.
The enemy has captured Epsilon.
Hold on. Let's go wrist the leg.
Left leg, critical damage.
Turn off your AMS.
We have data.
I like doing it. I know what I can do if I can sneak out that way. I'm doing a bit over here, but I can. Here's the risky part. Oh, fuck my life. That figures. I don't think he saw me.
Defeat is upon us. Do not bring shame upon yourself.
No. Let's hope for it. Come on. Come on.
Point Epsilon is ours. We're halfway there. Kappa is under control.
Damn the luck. Oh, tried.
We've captured Gamma. The enemy has resource point.
I tried,
Beta.
guys. Couldn't get to them all
An
the time.
embarrassing defeat. Our foes have gathered enough resources.
Alright, well, I did get to show them off, I guess. Especially with the airstrike, you notice that I planted it up top and allowed it to run right on down the ramp there, and was able to actually get some hits off the arty strike. That was rather quick, and it certainly wasn't. I kind of wanted you to see a group getting nailed by artillery, but I think I made my point anyway. Yeah. What you see is what you got right there. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments there, and I'll be glad to answer them as best I can. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe and like button, and feel free to, discuss, maybe say something I might have got wrong, so we look it up, all that. I have no problems. All I ask is that you respect each other on there and don't be a douche Austin. Alright, well, this is Dark Horse 13 Golf from the 13th Oriente Hussars signing off.